Greetings all, Shane Bruce, Rest of My Daisy with a conclusion video on the first gun of our 3-gun set that we're going to be working on for the next couple of days. This is a Daisy Model 99. We did a video on this one yesterday where it miraculously cured itself of a suspected sliding abutment washer. Performed admirably, so we took it apart to show you how to do that. We put it back together. But earlier today, I've gone through the process that I normally go through with these guns. When I first get them, I like to fire them using my cheap Chinese chronograph to get an idea of the kind of speed level the gun's doing when I get my hands on it, if it's functional. Once we've established that base, what I will do is swap out mainsprings and air tubes. This mainspring is the mainspring that came in the gun. And I substituted a brand new Red Ritter mainspring for that mainspring and changed the air tube from the old standard seam tube. If you'll look right there at the tip, you'll see a little black line, and that is the seam where the tube was actually formed out of a piece of flat steel. That is compared to the current production air tube. This is a current production standard bore air tube. You'll notice that it's seamless. It doesn't have any seam that runs down the side of the air tube, so it cannot leak air through that seam. You get a little more velocity. Now what we do here at Rest of Mine is we typically take a tube like this and we hit it with a 7/64" drill bit, which opens up the bore considerably and gives you a lot more air passage. And if more air passage translates into what it's supposed to translate into, that means more velocity on the BB. So we swap out the old air tube with the 7/64. We replace the old mainspring with a new production Red Ritter spring, and then we test it. We shoot about 20 rounds through it. And this is what the data sheet, crude as it is, looks like when we get done. I like to indicate the, well, it looks like we're having some visual issues, but let's try this. Anyway, it's chicken scratch, yeah, but that's what you get here at Rest of My Development. We don't really do a lot of spreadsheets, probably ought to. I'm going to try to give it a long enough grab so that if you want to, you can freeze frame it and study it and squint at it and try to figure out what you can derive information-wise from it. So, after firing cycle with the Red Ritter mainspring, we take the gun apart again and put in a Cobalt 327 super spring. As you can see, the Cobalt's a bit longer, the spring material's a bit stouter, and there's a couple of more turns involved, but you typically get a pretty good increase in velocity. Now, this gun was not as promising or as performance-oriented as smaller frame daisies are. It has a smaller diameter compression chamber in it that's suitable for the Model 25 compression cup, which is about .082 in diameter, versus the Red Ritter compression cup and compression chamber, which run about .089. So you get a little bit more swept volume with the Red Ritter than you do with the large frame daisies or some of the other small frame daisies of earlier manufacture. The bottom line is, we look at our data sheet here, we'll see that we averaged about 226 feet a second over 10 shots with completely stock equipment that was in the gun. And after maxing it out with a super spring, an oversized air tube, and new seals, we got it up to about 281. And that's not bad, but if it can't clear 300, it can't be a thumper. And this one is not a thumper. But 281 in a Daisy Model 99, not shabby at all. Now, I'm going to fire the gun one time to let you see what my cheap Chinese chrono looks like. So this is the process we use to determine how fast we think the gun's going to run. Turn on the chrono, crank the gun up, back it off about 6 inches, and pull the trigger. Now that translates into, that's 82.5 meters a second. And according to my calculations, that should be about 268, 270 feet a second when you convert it over to feet per second. So that is the process today. And that's what we did from yesterday. The gun's running. The gun is firing nice and reliably. Haven't had any double feeds or failure to fires. And it's hitting the can whenever I feel like pointing anything at it. So I'm going to say that this gun's fixed. The only thing left to do now with the owner is figure out if he wants to stay in a high-speed environment at 281 feet a second, or if he wants it back stock at roughly 226, which is more than adequate for knocking over cans and chasing balloons around. That's all for today. The update on the Model 99 is complete. Tomorrow we'll play with the Daisy number 101 Model 36, which should be pretty interesting because we're going to actually put that gun together to see if it runs, since it showed up in pieces. That's all we've got for you today, kids. Shane Bruce, Rest of My Daisy, signing off.